Hello, everybody. Ross, the music teacher here. I'm with my friend Antony Samaroff. That's Antony without an H. Last time I said without an N. But my audience is somewhat used to me making verbal mistakes. It's not a rarity. Antony is the author of Procrastination, Annihilation. You can check that out. I'm going to pull it up on screen here at beyourselfandloveit.com/doit. And do it is all one word. Download this ebook and stop
It's free.
procrastinating. It's totally free. It's totally free, and it's going to include links to his other podcasts and all this great stuff. So there's my introduction of Antony, but there's always a better introduction to be had by the person himself. So Antony, give us a little rundown of what you've been doing over the last year.
Well, after an introduction like that, it's going to be pretty hard to top. I was a piano teacher before I was a therapist and coach, so I am quite familiar with the and I love the work that you're doing. I love music theory in one lesson. I think your videos are very useful and practical, and we had a little chat, and you said to me that you thought it might be cool if I applied the techniques that I talk about in Procrastination Annihilation, the free book that you can get from beyourselfandloveit.com/do it. And it's not like one of these fake ebooks that's just like 16 pages. It is a short book. You can read it in 2 or 3 hours, but it's a proper free self-help book that I wrote based on my personal first-hand experience of being a chronic procrastinator all through my 20s, and how I became more productive to the point where I put out 2 podcasts a week. I do live streams on YouTube and put them up on YouTube. I wrote this book, more books in the can, and I never could have dreamed that a lot of the things that I used to find really difficult have become relatively easy for me, and I share the techniques, the tools, the tips, and the tricks that you can apply to systematically become less procrastinatory. And I know that some of us as musicians, we hear some piece of music or something and go, oh, I want to be able to play like that. And then you might sit down, start to play, and go, oh, that's going to take me forever. Forget about it and just stop where you started. We're notorious for being procrastinatory because one of the reasons that we become musicians is because we've got good taste. We like good stuff. We like good music. And then when we sit down to practice, we sometimes find that we've not quite caught up with the people that we'd like to be able to play like. And so some tips and tricks for overcoming procrastination and becoming more conscientious and industrious might not go amiss for the audience of your channel, at least some of them.
I think that it's not going to fall on deaf ears at all. Some of the highest engagement I get are videos on how to practice, what your attitude should be about practice. That is a huge focus, not only on this YouTube channel, but with my students personally. So can you give us the top 2 tips that you've used personally for you? Maybe not the top 2 for everybody, but the top 2 that have really made the difference for you for publishing a book, which is not a small feat.
Right, okay, so the first most important tip is not to try and change everything at once, because if you try and change everything at once, you will spread yourself too thin. Write a list of a few things that you know that you would like to do every day, and if this applies to your music practice, it could be some study, it could be some practical, and there could be some exercises in there. There might be other areas of your life you want to change as well. But to actually find something that's very small and very specific and apply yourself to doing that every day. So the first thing you want to do, whether it's you want to record an album or if you want to practice more, you want to improve your skills quicker, is to find a discipline and turn it into a habit. It's much better to do 15 minutes a day, every day for a week, than to do 2 or 3 hours in one day. Because 2 or 3 hours in one day is great, you'll get a rush out of it, but you wake up the next day thinking, oh, I'm only, you go to sleep thinking, oh, I'm always going to be like this, I've arrived, I'm going to do another 2, 3 years 2 3 hours tomorrow, and you wake up the next day still difficult to motivate. Whereas even if you just took something as small as 15 minutes to work on your track, or to work on your practice, or to do your skills, or whatever it is, over time, 5 minutes on your skills, right? But it's better to do it every day consistently than a large amount of time as and when. Once that is locked in, once that is a habit, probably you'll find that it starts to get easier in the third week. So if you can get to do that, put a chart on your fridge, 14 days, tick it off every day, do 14 days without missing a day. Third week it'll start to get easier, and then easier. And maybe after, yeah, obviously there's going to become a time where you're busy and you can't do it every day. But once it's locked in as a habit, even if you miss a day, you'll still be able to pick it up again. Whereas if you start missing a day in the first 2 weeks or too early, you'll find it really hard to get yourself motivated to get started the next day. So it would be good to have a strong determination, a strong commitment to do 2 weeks without missing a day. And as I say, after about 3 or 4 weeks, it'll be locked in. It'll start to lock in. They say it takes 42 days in total to build a habit, but it'll get easier a lot earlier than 42 days. Now, the great thing is once it's a habit, you can choose when to do it. Like, say if you find it hard to practice in the morning, but you've been doing this in the evening, but you want to practice in the morning. Now it's a habit. It'll be much easier to choose what time of day you do it. Because you'll be a lot looser. The other thing is you can always bump it up by 5 minutes once it's a habit, make it slightly longer. But the first and foremost thing is to create a discipline, whatever discipline that is. So that's my first tip. The second tip, I guess, sort of slightly interrelated, but it's to use a timer. Use a timer because it helps you in so many ways. When you think of learning a piece, for example, or finishing your recording, writing an album, whatever it is, it's so open-ended that it can really put you off even getting started. You don't know when you're going to be finished. You don't know when you're going to have learned that piece, how hard work it's going to be, how long it's going to take. There's too many variables. But having a timer there, say set for 20 minutes, it puts a box around it so it's discreet and you can handle it. Then when you get to the end of the 20 minutes, if you're having a great time and you don't want to stop, you can keep going. But the great thing about having that timer on for that set amount of time is you know when you're allowed to stop. And if you're 10 minutes through and you're like, this just isn't going well today, I'm not enjoying it, because you know your timer's on, you have the ability to say to yourself, well, it's only another 10 minutes and then I'm allowed to stop. And you should set that time for an amount of time that you can, like, for example, when I was writing my book, I was doing 2 or 3 hours of writing a day, 6 days a week on average. But I wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't had a discipline of writing for just half an hour a day for 6 months. That meant when I had a specific project to handle, I could increase the time. Now, often I would set my timer for a 30-minute stint, but that 30 minutes of writing would turn into 40 to 70 minutes. But there was no point in setting my timer for 40 minutes or 50 minutes because on a bad day, I never would have had the tolerance to know that my minimum was 40 minutes. Having it to something manageable. And don't be embarrassed to make that 5 minutes if you're not industrious yet. Don't be, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. If you find it really, really difficult, choose something that's manageable to you. Because once it's a habit, you can always bump it up. So recognize where you are and be a coach to yourself. Work with yourself. Always try and make things manageable, because 5 minutes a day might not sound much, but over the course of 2 weeks, it's something that creates a habit that can easily be expanded and built upon. And if you have a strong foundation, then you can build up high. So thank you. That was quite a long-winded explanation, but I think it's comprehensive.
I agree, and then actually, I'd like to kind of riff on that a little bit, because these are some concepts that come up quite a lot with me and my personal students, and some of the videos I put out on YouTube about practicing. So just a couple things that you said that I find to be just beyond important. One, the timer. The timer. You know, I put it this. There are really two big things that I tell my students that the timer's necessary for. One, when you first start practicing music, you do not know how to practice for an hour.
Right.
You're going to practice for 5 to 10 minutes, and then you're going to be screwing around for an hour. And,
right.
and it's really important to just accept that fact.
Right.
And if you limit your time, I generally recommend everybody's first week 5 minutes a day, and I give them one very specific goal to try and accomplish. Yes, and if you can accomplish that one goal in those 5 minutes a day, then we can begin to scale a little bit, and we can see how much you can handle. Now, there's the ever important "it's time to stop" button, right? So when we're sitting there practicing, we think, oh, I got to be able to play this song. I got to be able to play it, and I got to be able to play it like right now. And, you know, oftentimes it's just not going to happen, you know, because you're a human being, and you know, you try to learn a song in one day, and you've only been practicing guitar for 2 months. It's like, you know, your expectations are a little far. So you have to be able to say, this is how far I got today. I'm ready to try again tomorrow. Because it's incredibly important for the human brain to get some sleep in between your practice sessions. Sleep is the missing ingredient to everybody's kind of practice habit. And it's physiologically, it's the way that our body works. And if you argue with reality by saying, no, I'm going to practice for an hour and a half till I get this, and no, I don't need sleep, well, then you're just setting yourself up to fail. By making things spread out, when you said 2 to 3 hours in one day is not effective as 15 minutes a day for a week, you're just that's dead on. That's dead on. People need to be able to get some sleep in between.
You need to integrate your experiences.
Exactly. And you know, you might find that at the end of your practice session, you're still not getting it, and then you wake up the next day and voila, like you can kind of get it.
And sometimes taking a break from a piece. I mean, I remember trying to learn these Bach things, keyboard pieces, and sometimes I get so close to them that I kept on making the same mistake over and over again. And this is back in the peak of me practicing when I was doing several hours of piano a day one summer. And it's like I just kept on making the same mistakes over and over again for days, and then I just take a break from that piece for a couple of days, and when I came back to it, it was like, oh, I'm not making those mistakes anymore because I had the sleep. I had a time away from it to integrate my experiences. And yeah, I can't agree more. It's like the sleep. People, you can't do this whole month's visit to the gym by going to the gym this weekend for the whole of Saturday or the whole of Sunday. You know, you need to go to the gym, then you need to give your muscles a rest, then you need to go to the gym, then you need to go to give your muscles a rest. It's like watering your houseplants. And it's the same with your practice. You have to do what is in your capacity to do, and then take a rest so that your unconscious can integrate the practice and, you know, sink it into your being so that it's not just, you need some perspective.
Yeah. Now, your first
slow and steady wins the race.
Absolutely. Your first point, I think, is the most important thing when it comes to mindset, where you're saying your first goal needs to be making a habit.
Yes.
A lot of people will come to their lessons for their first lesson, and they'll say, "Oh, my first goal is to play this song or this or that piece." And that's not a good goal. The good goal is to say, "I'm going to practice as effectively as I can." Those pieces will show up. You'll be able to play them, and you'll be able to play them quicker if you don't obsess over them. It's all about making your practice a varied habit where you're working on the songs that you want, but you're also working on technique, and you need some ear training, and you do need to know your theory, and you do need to be able to read. And the songs come so much easier, and it's a lot less stressful when it's approached that way.
And I love you saying this, and it's very congruent. If people download the book Procrastination Annihilation for beyourselfandloveit.com/do it, I speak about what you're talking about in relation to the process of writing and in relation to the process of music. It's like I used to always focus on trying to finish things. Oh, I need to get it finished. But if you try and finish it, you're turning the process into a chore. Oh, I just need to go through this process so that I can finish it. And you're not going to enjoy your practice. So for me, it was letting go of having to finish the book. My job was just to write a minimum of 2 hours a day during that point, 5-6 days a week. I was happy with that. I was enjoying it. In 3 or 4 settings, I needed, just like you said, you needed to sleep. I needed to write for a while. Then I needed to go away and have a break so I could relax and defocus my mind from the specifics. Then come back, then go away. And my job, even if it was half an hour a day, the book is going to get finished when it gets finished. My only job is to make sure that I do what I've committed myself to today. Because there's so many things going on in your life apart from music. And if you want to balance those things up and have them in a healthy way, then you have to have various things that you do each day. You know, whether it's brush your teeth, something as simple as that, to practicing for half an hour a day, to doing 5 minutes of scales, to taking out your lyrics and having a look through them and seeing if you can finish them. Whatever it is, whatever in fact, start from the point of thinking, if you were living the life that you wanted to live, what are the things that you'd be doing every day? Because you don't want to get into a point where you're sacrificing things, like you stop going to the gym while you're trying to finish your album thinking that it's going to be finished next month, when actually it ends up taking 5 months to finish, and then that's just 5 months that you stop taking exercise because you didn't have habits, you didn't have disciplines. And I'm saying this as someone that was extraordinarily disorganized in this regard. I'm not saying it without compassion. I'm saying it because I want to make people aware that you can actually find great life balance, and you will be satisfied when you go to bed knowing you've done your practice. It doesn't matter if you finish the song or not, learning the song or not, because you know that if you do what you're doing consistently, everything that is outside of your ability will gradually come within your ability because you're holding up your end of the bargain.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, there was one day a student came in for his first lesson, and this was a student, quite frankly, that did not last long.
Right.
And their first question to me was, how long is this going to take?
Wow. Yeah. That's a bother. Yeah.
And my answer is, this is what you do now.
It's a practice.
Yeah. It's not music, one thing that really grinds me the wrong way is when someone is treating music like it's something that they're going to master. It's something they're going to use to become cool. It's something that they're going to just knock out of the park. And it's like, no, you're actually building a relationship with something bigger than yourself, and you have to treat it like a relationship. You know, you will get to know music better, but you can't just march in, you know, looking to take musical scalps, so to speak.
Right.
You have to be in a position where you say, all right, I am becoming a musician. I happen to play guitar, I happen to play piano, but I'm becoming a musician. It's going to take a lifetime. And whenever my life ends, that's when I stop practicing.
Right. There you go. And I really appreciate that, because I speak a little bit in the book about how I increased my energy levels by taking up yoga. Not at great length, but I give the basic overview of how that happened. I don't mention this in the book, but I just need to take it off you, because when I started, it was because my body was so tight and my muscles were I was so inflexible and unfit and all these kinds of things. And exactly the same, when I got started, I was just like, how long is this going to take? How long is it going to take before I stop feeling like crap? Do you know what I mean? And the longer I've been practicing, the more I get it. It's like, it's not about that. That taking exercise is something that I do now. A couple of years ago, I never knew that I'd be able to enjoy going to the gym, but I really enjoy it now, you know? So it's like, it's not about me mastering yoga, you know, or any exercise for that matter. It's about me getting a little bit better each day. And I appreciate it because the way that you look, that you put forward the proposition about music, this is a relationship, and it's a relationship that lasts a lifetime. So it's not about how long it takes for you to get good. It's just about cultivating a relationship, you know, learning to love it. And I appreciate what you're saying, because when I was a kid, I was forced to go to piano lessons, and I only had that association of, it wasn't for me, right? It was for my mother, you know, who was sending me there, even though that's not true. It seemed that way. So I didn't take it seriously. It wasn't until I went to high school and all my friends started getting in bands and things like that, and I brought out the keyboard and I could play along a little bit, and I was like, well, that's pretty cool. I don't sound rubbish, but it would be really good to sound a lot better on this old thing when I want to play along with these people, with my friends, so that I can be in a band. So I took up piano lessons again as a teenager, and I had to work through all of the negative associations that I had of being, in inverted commas, forced to learn, and poor teachers and all sorts of things, all sorts of experiences. And I had to play for long enough to rediscover the joy and the fun. And, you know, I like the way that I can exercise competency if I'm playing with other musicians, and I can sit down at the keys and I can find out things to play along, and I sound pretty good, and it's all internalized. Even though I don't play as much as I used to, I'm looking forward to rebuilding the habit myself, and it's like, it's all in there. There's always something more to learn. When I was, for a long time I played classical music, and then I had a period where I wasn't able to play classical music because I didn't have the time. I was studying at college, and so I had the time to learn rock, you know, and pop. I was learning Queen and Billy Joel and Elton John and other piano rockers, and that's what my time would allow. So even though in a way my finger dexterity went down during that period, I couldn't do all these complicated runs from Bach or Mozart, I was still getting better in a different way. My knowledge of chords and how to voice them differently and combine them, and all sorts, and my composition was improving, so that when I got back to classical music, I could relearn the dexterity, but I had other skills. There's always something to learn. There's always something to expand into, and to be inspired by the prospect that, oh, I can learn something, rather than feeling like it's a heavy weight where you have to do something. The piano, the guitar, whatever your instrument is not against you. It's not fighting you for competence. You need to sit down to it and explore it and find out what the secrets are, what it has to share with you, and also just the physical side of it, the physical approach to getting your muscles agile and familiar enough with your instrument that landing in the right place becomes second nature to you.
Absolutely. So here's the $1 million question, Mr. Antony. How has your piano practice taught you to approach life's obstacles? Has there been anything that's transferred over?
Wow, that's such a wonderful question, and I so know that there's ways that it has. One is the persistence. Another is the understanding. Well, the major one that's so important is you have to hit the wrong notes to hit the right notes. You're never going to learn how to play that piece without getting it wrong like a million times. And that's something that really transferred over into life. that understanding that, hey, it's okay to make mistakes and stuff like that, because you have to do the wrong things in order to find the right things. And also the understanding that music is a science. There is a beautiful artistic, creative element to how you express a piece and how you play and how you write. But in the same way that there is a expressive, creative element to architecture, but fundamentally there are laws of physics, and our architecture, our buildings have to fundamentally conform to the laws of nature, otherwise they'll just collapse. And that is very useful in music, to understand that you can understand music, you can figure out how it all works, how all the pieces fit together, and then you will be wizardly because you will know the secrets, you know, how to put things together, what goes with what, and if you use this chord in this context, what kind of effect that is, and all the different ways you can voice that chord. Your competence is growing, and you're like a wizard who's got all of these different spells at your disposal. And if something's not working, if your composition isn't working, or your arrangement, if two of the harmonies are clashing for some reason, there's a scientific reason for that. And you can discover, the only thing is that you need to discover, you need to learn something. So that was something very wonderful I learned from becoming a musician that I could then apply to the rest of life. Like, if you're not getting the results you want in life, it's just because there's things that you need to learn that you don't know yet. You know, if you get the right ingredients together, make your mistakes, but learn from your mistakes, you'll be able to get the outcomes you want. And of course, that's really important to me in my line of work now, since I'm coaching people.
Yeah, and you know, I think even further, you know, not just learn to accept your mistakes, but learn to love them.
You're right.
That's your radar. That's how you. That's how you know. That's a very good answer. That's a very good answer. I like.
Well,
that.
I'd love to hear your answer.
Well, my answer is actually almost exactly the same as yours. One thing that I really am trying to get across to every student that comes in to study with me, or any students on my YouTube, is you really need to look at your mistakes objectively.
Right.
And just don't get emotional about them.
Right.
You know, you have to just say, oh, well, you know, that didn't work. Let's try it a different way. And as soon as someone is able to do that, it's like 1,000-pound weight off of your chest.
Yeah. People are so afraid of making mistakes. That was one of the main things I found teaching kids. It's like their fear of making mistakes. And what are we doing in school? Putting red crosses on their homework so that they think that making a mistake is a bad thing.
Yeah, and not only that, but the fear of having people notice your mistakes, the fear of being perceived as a failure. You know, that in life can be a really, really big hurdle.
For sure.
And you know, once you get to a point where you say, hey, listen, I'm a human being. I'm going to do my very best. If I make a mistake, I'm going to learn from it, but I'm not going to be embarrassed about it. I'm not going to pretend that they don't happen. And for that matter, I'm going to celebrate the fact that I was brave enough to make the mistake and to get right back up. That's the big thing that music has taught me.
That's awesome, and yeah, you can't make any It's better to do something and make a mistake and learn than to be so scared of making a mistake that you end up not doing anything. So exactly. Even the fact that you put the effort in, you put yourself in a situation where you could make a mistake, is itself commendable.
Absolutely. Well, Antony, I think that's an excellent note to leave off on.
Cool. I just want to mention one more tip for you faffers.
Please do.
If you're not clear on what your goal is before your practice session, so you might be going through your books, your music books, trying to decide what piece you're going to play. And the other thing I just wanted to say is pre-commitment is really useful. So at the end of a practice session, figure out what you're going to do in your next practice session, and that will also save you time and the stress of having too much choice. It's great.
Absolutely. Well, Antony, excellent. Everybody, you guys should check out the link below in the description. Download the ebook. Seriously, this stuff is not just for guitar. This is for your lifestyle. If you want to become a better person, then you need to annihilate your procrastination.
Right.
All right, everybody.
Thank you so much for having me on your show, Ross. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And I hope you guys will let me know what you think once you download the book from beyourselfandloveit.com/do it.
And actually, so if anybody does download that book and you let us know down in the comments how much you liked it, there's a small chance I might send you a free copy of my music theory book. So get on it, guys.
Oh my God, that's freaking awesome. Thank you so much.
Very good. Very good. Antony, thanks for dropping in.